And then we go. We're back for real this time. Derek for real, like the movie Blow. Glad to see you here. And we lost our first concurrent viewer because we burped and farted our way out the OBS door there, unfortunately. We're
Come back,
missing
Steve.
both. Sorry, what's that, bro?
Come back, Steve.
Yeah, exactly. We're missing both Maddie and TK today, unfortunately. They're both otherwise occupied. So you got our three lovely faces. I'm Galen. Hi, how you doing? Right above me is Vishal Tura, our technical analysis expert, and above is our king of coin, Mr. Joseph Morton. So hi, Joe. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah.
Do you like Joe or is it Joseph?
Usually Joseph. I really don't care
Has anybody
anymore.
ever called you Joe?
No one's really called me Joe since I was like 17. It's always been Joseph.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I mean, it's more distinguished, I guess. You don't sound like a trucker going to Ottawa.
Right.
Okay. So anyway, we're going to start with Michelle, and let us know what's going on in the markets because there's been some crazy rate hike promises, and
Yep.
the markets are pretty damn unsure, and all sorts of shit going on right now. What's happening, buddy?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So last week we ended off the week talking about how the next week we're going to be talking about this big Fed rate decision and how the markets were basically just they were breaking down, right? Essentially, we were breaking down last week, and then we had the Fed meeting, the following week, uh, this week, and the Fed came and it's gone. Basically, the Fed meeting has come and gone, and it's a strange one. I have to say, it's a very strange one. Not only was there the Fed rate decision on Wednesday, but also the Bank of Canada rate decision. And even though the probabilities were, no rate hike, right? No one was expecting a 25 basis point hike. I was actually chatting with a few mortgage brokers here, real estate crowd here in Canada. And, these are smart people. And a lot of them were making bets saying, hey, Canada's going to raise 50 basis points 2 days ago. Just watch. They're going to do it because this central banks, they're serious about combating inflation. So they're going to hike rates by 50 basis points because everything is going crazy. Markets are going crazy. Real estate's going crazy. Inflation's crazy. So they have to make a statement. And there's actually some traders who were saying that the Fed might do a surprise rate hike of 25 basis points. And of course, none of that actually materialized. And the thing is, central banks never really want to surprise markets. That's the last thing they want to do. So if the futures or if the rates are not pricing in a rate hike, for example, in March, we have the Fed futures pricing in like an 86 or 90% chance of a rate hike. So they're going to have to hike rates, right? If they don't, that's going to be a surprise because 90% of market participants are thinking there's going to be a rate hike. And if the Fed doesn't deliver, markets can go volatile. So I wasn't someone thinking that there was going to be any rate hike, in January, but I know there's quite a large crowd that thought that the Fed was going to raise rates. And the statements for both the Bank of Canada and the Federal Reserve, very hawkish, right? Statements are saying, hey, things are getting better. And we're at a point now where we can end our easy monetary policy, and we're looking to raise rate hikes. Basically, Canada just said, starting March, we're going to start to do it. The Fed rate hike said the same thing. The Fed, the FOMC press release said the exact same thing, pretty much that, things are looking good, and we're going to start talking about rate hikes. However, at his conference, at the Powell conference, which comes 30 minutes after the statement, it was a very different tone. I was I've never seen Powell like this. Maybe, I wasn't on any drugs or anything, so I'm sure, what I saw was true. But a lot of people actually afterwards said the same thing, that Powell was very hesitant. He was, stuttering a lot. And he kept using this word nimble, like the Fed's going to be nimble. And to me, it was a big discrepancy between the hawkish sort of FOMC statement versus Powell's sort of, yes, we're going to want to hike rates, but anything can happen from now till March. And, I'm not going to say when we're going to, hike, but anything can happen from now till March. And we're going to be very nimble to our approach. We'll discuss next month, and then we'll see how it goes. So to me, it was very dovish, like press conference, but a hawkish statement. And I don't think the market liked it at all. I'm thinking the market was very uncomfortable with that because the market actually wanted to basically know, right, that, hey, this is the timetable now. We're going to start to hike rates. People are still talking about 4 to 5 rate hikes, but I think in the upcoming weeks, watch that dramatically reduce, perhaps given how markets are reacting, and just that overall Powell statement. It was a very, very odd one, and
See, the
I'm
funny
still sort of
thing
trying.
is, if Vishal, just to
Yep.
let me interject for a second, it has never been the Fed's constitutional mandate to be concerned about the fucking public markets.
Exactly. Yep.
And this
100%.
sort of about face is really telltale that they're caught between lobbying forces, as it were. Because
Exactly. I mean,
it's
you
quite
hit-
clear that the statement that they made was a shorthand, please don't fucking kill us statement. Well, the long explanation had to carry more truth.
Right.
And it was, as you said, full of hesitation
It was, yeah.
and trepidation. So we're not out of the woods yet.
I don't think so.
The inflation continues to rise, although apparently we had good GDP growth that was just
Q4, yeah.
reported. Which is, I don't know, one way or the other. You can take your pick, seasonal workers, all that kind of shit, right? I don't know what to expect. What do you expect coming up? How do you see the economy happening?
It's it's still a strange one. I'm still seeing the employment signs. There's still like that exodus of workers. So I sort of don't know, man. The real economy, it's really, in my opinion, sort of difficult to gauge. I'm seeing, as I said, a lot of help wanted signs. I know a lot of people are quitting their jobs, and there's a lot of vacancies out there. So it's a strange one for me, man. It's obviously, we've said this before, but the stock market and the real economy are two different things. The real economy doesn't really affect the stock market anymore because of the hunt for yield and the cheap money and all that kind of stuff. So I'm still wondering about this whole COVID thing. I know a lot of people are still afraid of it, even though they're double vaxxed and boosted. There's still a lot of people that don't want to go out to work, or still want to stay indoors. So I don't know if we're even out of that whole the pandemic. Even though Powell, he sort of even hinted at that too, stating that we don't know, maybe another variant can show up here from now till March, and so far it's looking pretty good, but we just don't know what's going to happen in the future. So there's still I can't really predict what's happening in the real economy, man. It's very mixed and match, man. A lot of people, as I said, the vacancies I'm seeing, people don't want to work.
Now, the IMF has also come out and said that they're worried about the global recovery. And not just in America, also China in particular, that it's suffering as well. And that in and of itself is a big, I've constantly said this, so I'm probably harping on, beating a dead horse, is that they are the consumer for most of the world's resources. And if they slow down, we're all basically fucked.
So that's like the big debate now, because can the Fed hike in a weakening economy, a world economy? So it's like the Fed is trapped here. The economy is not improving. It's still weak. So technically they should keep interest rates low, right? Because that's the way to try to boost the economy, get money flowing, versus inflation is going out of control. The Fed has to hike rates in order to, put a tamper there on inflation. What are they going to do, right? That's sort of the dilemma I think you're going forward. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be very volatile. There's going to be a lot of volatility here in the next upcoming few weeks to months. I'm still technically not bullish just yet. I've talked about this 4,500 zone on the S&P 500. I sort of want to see that be taken out. However, as you guys can sort of see here from the chart, this whole week we've just been ranging basically very volatile too, might I say, here at this support at around 4,280 to 4,300. But the thing about me is usually when we range like this, we tend to see a breakout rather quickly. That's not happened. We still see some selling pressure here and there. So obviously the markets are green right now, but we are technically, I would say, still below this 42, 40, 44, 25 sort of zone. So in my opinion, we're technically still ranging, and it could easily continue a downwards move depending on what happens here in the next few weeks. NASDAQ, pretty much the same. The Dow Jones is the same. So all the markets are essentially ranging here at this support zone. So for me, I can't tell you guys right now if I'm bullish or not. I'm still looking for major resistance levels here to be broken before I can sort of change my stance here. But we have been ranging here at a major support for 5 days here. So it technically is looking good. But I think there's a few other charts, we've talked about that you have to look at when it comes to the equity markets. The first foremost is that 10-year yield chart, TLT, 10-year yield. And I think it's important because basically if it's rising, people are sort of pricing in rising interest rates. And, currently you can see here, after we broke above 1.70%, we did sort of roll over here. And I think if this weakens, if we break below 1.70%, that would actually be bullish for the stock markets in terms of, yields are not rising. And then, of course, we have to talk about King Kong dollar, as some people are calling it, or King dollar, I guess. But the US dollar, huge breakout this week after the Fed. Yeah, folks, this is the one I'm sort of worried about because obviously a stronger dollar is going to impact not just the precious metals and cryptos per se, but a lot of currencies around the world, especially these emerging market economies that have a lot of dollar denominated debt. If the dollar is getting stronger and the Fed's raising rates, they have to pay back in much more expensive dollars, which could cause some concern in the future. So when I see a stronger dollar, it's really difficult right now to discern if the dollar is rising because of Fed rate hikes or Fed hawkishness, or if it's seeing a run into the US dollar for safety, right? Because, we do have some geopolitical stuff going on, obviously, in Eastern Europe. So it's something to keep your eye out on, folks. Like this rising dollar here, don't discount this. I think this is something to technically be worried about because it might not be pricing that Fed hawkishness, but it could just be pricing in money running into cash for safety, right? A lot of people we know are.
All right, Vishal. On that note, what is the canary in the coal mine? What should we be looking for in the next coming months in terms of the upward or downward trajectory for the market?
The dollar specifically, or just markets, or
the market in general? I mean, you've pointed out the dollar here, and you've pointed out strong American dollar is not necessarily the greatest thing, but I'm looking at the chart you have on here right now, and it's dipping far below the lines here. Yep. And I'm curious how much of that is like, can we look at that and see that as the canary, or is that just, is the canary sick, or is it dead? Or are all the miners
dead? Technically, just being a technical analyst, like this is the beginning of a downtrend, right? So obviously, I believe the move right now from the very top to the bottom on the S&P has only been like 12%. So it actually falls within that correction, the correction sort of category. I think it's a 20% for a bear market. So technically, this is just a correction. I would still say, though, like I said, I'm still bearish on the markets unless we close above 4,500. Like that's what I would be watching for. In terms of fundamental events, it's March, right? That Fed rate decision in March is the big one. So it's not like we're going to range here all the time, but I think definitely watch what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, because that could be a black swan if something crazy happens there. But in terms of where markets are going, like I said, I'm still bearish just based on the technicals, but I'd want to see a close above 4,500 to sort of shift my stance. And I know a lot of the bulls or the buy the dip people are taking a look at this range here for 5 days saying, hey, we couldn't break below this price floor, multiple times. So that's quite a bullish sign, but just be careful.
I've got a question here from
Sure.
one of our viewers. TK, actually. He's
Hey.
logging into the show. Do you feel this is the market correcting a previous incorrect forecast of the actual earning power of some of these growth stocks?
Right. Yeah.
Like, is it an external force or is it internal? Are people beginning to wake up to insane valuations such as that asshole at Tesla?
Well, you mentioned that. So a lot of people were talking about Tesla and Apple this week because those were the two big sort of earning plays. Of course, there are a few other companies that actually delivered really stellar earnings. But after the fall in Netflix, a lot of people were looking at Tesla and Apple. And, Tesla, I believe they beat expectations.
Apple and Tesla did beat expectations, but I mean, the realization with Tesla is that even though it did, it still produced shit. I mean, in regards to total volume, right?
And I can't remember which. I think they fell short on one of the criteria, but the stock sold off hard, right? I mean, it was down 11%.
Actually, not necessarily. I think they made over 70,000. I mean, actually, they beat expectations.
They beat everything. Okay, wow.
Yeah. But the problem, they made record profit. They made record production. As making 70,000 vehicles and delivering 70,000 vehicles approximately for the month over the 200 and some odd thousand that they had done the quarter before.
Yep.
But the problem is that the story that there are a juggernaut in the auto industry or EV industry and somehow have this infinite valuation potential, I think the chickens are starting to come home to roost. People are beginning to realize. Maybe people
didn't like the comment that Musk made about, hey, for future growth, we don't really want to build cars anymore. We want to start building that robot.
Well, no, because that was post his shitting the bed. Right? That was him donning his straw hat and trying to be the music man once again and saying that, well, you know what? The robots that I got in the bathroom in the back there, they're going to be a huge portion of business. In fact, they're going to outstrip my car manufacturing industry.
This year,
which isn't that fucking difficult if you take a look at it realistically. However, what he's discussing is a fucking science fantasy. What he is actually trying to sell us is something called artificial general intelligence. Artificial intelligence, what we have right now, and what is actually pretty exciting, is an entirely specialized service. It focuses on few very constrained, very specific purposes. It helps with drug development and all sorts of lovely things. Its primary strength is that it can sift through tons of data, more than we could ever possibly hope to get through, and come to conclusions. But the problem is, it's only a very finite set of problems that it can solve at any one time. What he's purporting is this fucking thing is going to be our electronic butler, which is an absolute piece of shit. There is no way that we're going to have self-generating artificial intelligence. It's just not going to happen. This is another bullshit ploy, another fucking metal whistle, another set of hot pants that you can fucking buy or you can spend your Dogecoin on. This guy is a fucking market manipulating, spineless fucking shit stain. Seriously, he makes comments on the Canadian political front saying Canadian truckers rule. This is the same jackass that said that we would not be having COVID in our midst because it would disappear on its own by March 2020. The guy doesn't know his ass from the fucking hole in the ground. And he's all willing to stick his thumb in the eye of California legislatures, the American government, the people that are in competition with him in the auto industry, and the Canadian government as we try to get past this whole fucking COVID sociopaths who are anti-vaxxers and ridiculously fucking pseudoscientific. He is making these comments, but not once has this piece of shit ever spoken up against the CCP. This should show you that this guy is ethic-free, morally bereft, and an absolute danger to the fucking economy because the only one he looks out for is number one. There we go. That probably, well, it didn't lose any viewers because probably TK, he's probably laughing at me right now.
He's probably laughing, but yeah, just like to quickly answer TK's question there too. The other big earning was, of course, Apple, who had their best quarter revenue ever. I think the only place they missed out on was in terms of sales was iPad. That was the only miss they had, but everything else was the best, quarter revenue ever in Apple's history. And a lot of people now were talking about, okay, is Apple going to keep these markets propped now because it's such a good earnings? So now people are saying, hey, things aren't so bad. Companies are still making money. And I can't say, or I can't confirm that Apple's going to prop the market just yet, because as you guys can see here on my chart, we are actually retesting the breakdown zone of around the 168 area here, 168.50, let's call it. So depending on the close today, and you can see here, we're actually seeing some sell-off, and we have like 30 minutes to go before markets actually close. So very easily, we can actually get this green candle body to close below this resistance zone. Obviously, you know, I want to see a strong close to basically say, okay, it looks like the bulls are now taking back control. But as of now, you know, this could easily just make a lower high swing, which is generally what we want to see on breakdowns, right? If you miss out the first breakdown, you wait for that retest, and then you pile in again. So there's a big battle going on here.
I think the economy has changed so much since the 1970s in regards to productivity. And I think now that we are significantly less in terms of productivity in our general economy. The idea that a single company can prop up an entire market, I think, is probably a little bit fallible. It's understandable in a wave of optimism that people look at that and go, hey, you know, everything's great. But realistically, it's one company amongst many that's actually turning a profit. And because it owns its fucking market, it's not a good indicator that everybody else is doing well.
Exactly, no. I agree. I think it's just like a headline thing that obviously financial media has to have headlines. So I think that's what they're sort of running with. But I agree. It's just the thing is, though, Apple makes such a huge, I think it's like the biggest portion company-wise, right, on the S&P 500.
Oh, probably.
So, and we talked about Tesla too, right? Tesla had a pretty large percentage
huge
there.
stake.
So
Absolutely.
if they both can, if they
I kind of
both,
want to
you
go
know,
back and talk about the artificial intelligence thing that you
Okay.
brought up earlier.
Yep.
I mean, you have of course, the notion of general artificial intelligence, which is where the whole, I don't know, the William Gibson aspect of like Wintermute neuromancer comes in, where these AIs eventually end up owning corporations, which move global politics. I mean, that is the dystopian view of it. But what I'm actually interested in is the companies that are looking to build the better calculator. And one of the things I wrote about in my roundup, should be somewhere, it's on the Equity Guru site, is about this company which is introducing a new type of AI, which they're going to be unveiling in some unnamed Canadian mall, big one. It's either going to be Westad or hopefully it's going to be Metrotown, and it's a chatbot. Now, what I want to know is how long it's going to take before the people walking by turn that thing into a stark raving Nazi.
It won't take that long at all, because basically an artificial intelligence system is, and as we are, but we have that general intelligence, is a sum of its parts. Yeah. So it will not take very long at all. It will reduce itself to the lowest common denominator and react accordingly. And it's truly not intelligent per se. It's an aggregator of data. That's basically it. It's an aggregator of data. And
it's a better calculator.
Yeah. And in that kind of application, I'm all for it. The advancement of medicine and science, allowing specialists a second eye, because the computer vision in that regard is far superior to the human vision, because we can only take in so many things at once, and to certain extents are bound to miss things that might be very important, whereas the computer is kind of fated to examine everything before it can churn out an answer, because that's the way it thinks. It's linear. It has to go through the entire process before it can come up with an answer. So these kinds of things, I'm all for it. I think that's absolutely fantastic. But fucking Elon Musk plugging chips into people's disabled people's heads as a fucking shortcut to clinical trials, and basically fucking using us as human guinea pigs. You know what? The second he plugs one of those fucking chips into his own head, maybe I'll take another serious look at it. Probably not, because I'm not a typical person that will jump off a fucking cliff if everybody else is doing it. But, you know, it'd probably give it more legitimacy if this asshole actually got into his own spaceship and plugged a chip into his head, you know, instead of just telling us all to do it ourselves. So he can. I
thought I read something about a chimpanzee getting a plant in its head.
Yep. And no, he did it. I don't know
No,
about
I don't
this.
think it was a. I
Yeah.
don't think it was a Musk. It was some other
Okay.
science.
Well, there was a Neuralink experiment.
There was
It's
that one. Yeah,
basically
yeah.
based on 20-year-old technology. He didn't do fuck all other than make the wires smaller and use high Wi-Fi. So basically, it can move stuff around on a screen. Now, as far as plugging chips into disabled individuals' heads so they can use their electronic devices better, there's already many systems that are external that allow that very same control without having to jab wires into your fucking brain. It's just, I don't know. I understand the idea of science and how to advance it, but I also think that Musk has stepped way outside the ethical atmosphere and is now breathing oxygen from a whole nother fucking place. And
Or he's blowing smoke out his ass about so many different claims. I mean,
well, he's
I'm
managed. And,
continually surprised. I mean, I go on Facebook and go on Twitter,
yeah,
and continually surprised at the sheer amount of morons who line up to. I can't say that here. To
kiss his
I'm gonna
ass.
say it anyway. To suck that guy's dick, basically.
Okay, well, there you go.
Line it up to do that.
Yeah, people do it with politics too, man. So
I cannot believe the sheer amount of morons there are out there just lining up to like.
It's because
whatever he says.
No, I understand there, brother, and I would have to say, and this is me pulling up my pants up around my armpits and screaming at the fucking kids to get off my lawn. But the problem is that in our culture, right as it stands now, we have been raped by social media, meaning that we no longer possess critical thought. Whatever the newest and latest and most cool meme is, we tend to follow without any sort of research or due diligence. We just figure that's true because, well, it's on Twitter. This is how the disinformation, this is how the Russian troll farms work. It's social media in many respects is probably the worst fucking thing we've ever done to ourselves because quite honestly, even though we can communicate every 20 seconds about our color of our socks and tell the world how we feel, there's really no need to. It doesn't serve a fucking purpose besides letting us navel gaze and be misinformed, following our confirmation bias that we don't really have to do the work anymore. And so people that see Musk immediately believe the fucking hype because most guys that are billionaires can afford the press and media necessary to perpetuate a story that's entirely fucking untrue to give the impression that they're actually lonely geniuses pushing the world forward, when in fact they're people sitting on top of the shoulders of a great many individuals who are allowing them the space and potential to do their thing. When Musk took over Tesla, Tesla was already a thing. The true innovators were the guys that made those electric cars that they put out. Ed Begley was the last one to own one that actually got taken off of the road and destroyed for no better reason than lobbying interests destroying the company and its idea. And those fucking cars were out in the 80s. So he's not breaking any new territory. He's basically riding a wave. This is what people fail to understand. They put him on a fucking pedestal when he's just like you and me. He's an average engineer. He just got a real nice financial push from his daddy, who he claims is some sort of monster, who I think he follows directly in the steps in, and has received this sort of distorted sense of media representation because of his luck during the dot-com era. There you go. Silence. People just like, how do I feel about this guy? I don't necessarily think he should be behind bars, but I do fucking think he should be stripped of everything he owns because he's a fucking lying sack of shit. That's why the founders and all of his companies.
We do the same with politicians, though.
Well,
Take
absolutely.
everything from them too.
Well, that's what should happen, right? Accountability. His SpaceX, although a company seems to be doing well, for the same reason that he's mocking other private space exploration companies for, because they're basically living off the government teat. The only thing he managed to do, because all the technology using, all the brains that he has, are all transplants from the NASA department. The technology's 20 years old. The recoverable rockets, all that shit's old news. He's just making it happen. The only thing that he didn't or did do was basically pare down the fucking supply chain to an affordable cost. Now, let's hope that he doesn't turn into fucking Walmart and their own suppliers, where they drive down the cost so much that we end up with less than proper components. Amazon, supposedly is doing price fixing. They ended up paying a huge settlement in Washington State because they're fucking strong-arming suppliers, basically into making it so their Amazon products get highlighted and fucking bought first before these guys that actually make the products can sell theirs. This whole thing is just a fucking fallacy and a sham. We live in a day of modern fucking railroad barons, and we fail to do that. So what the government needs is better oversight. For instance, with the NASA experimentations and such, the way that they're charging $500 for a hammer. Admittedly, you want to make sure that the stuff is being made in top quality, and you got to pay for that to a certain extent. Absolutely. But the other fact is that you can't get guys that are doing no bid deals for billions of dollars that never have to account for what they're fucking doing.
Government oversight is one thing, but what we need is to organize some variety of boycott, because especially Amazon. I mean, that the company has too many damn verticals, fingers in too many pies, and it's a wonder the government doesn't actually break it up.
Well, see, that's the thing. It doesn't, because it sits on one of these fucking main indices that it doesn't want to toy with. And the same thing that goes for Tesla. Tesla's talking about robots. Good. Split off the fucking company and make robots. Because it is not related.
No.
Anyway, there's my
Don't
rant.
get me
That most
started on
likely,
Facebook. Jesus, why did you put that chart up there? I mean, the whole Mark Zuckerberg and his introduction to the metaverse, I mean, it's just another unique and capable way of raping away all your private information.
I think we should maybe, just because we mentioned Zuckerberg and the metaverse, let's end off here with Bitcoin. I know a lot of people want to talk about cryptos, and I think they might be interested in your take on the whole Deem. Facebook and Deem, everyone was talking about how crazy that project's going to be, and it just
Yep.
Deem.
And finally they shut it down. So, any thoughts?
I kind of saw this coming, and I do believe I called it when I wrote about this piece of shit cryptocurrency before it was coming out. I mean, you look at Mark Zuckerberg, and just the way he drinks water and when he's sitting there. I mean, you can tell the guy is clearly a lizard person. If there's going to be some kind of argument for Mr. X, some variety of counter argument, some variety of evidence for Mr. X, whole theory that the world is governed by lizard people, you don't have to look too much further than Mark Zuckerberg. Because seriously, you're sitting there and he's drinking his water, and it looks like his forked tongue comes out, kind of laps it up and brings it back into his mouth. And you got to wonder what is going on with this company. I mean, all right, the DIM thing or the DM thing, it was the first time I'd ever heard of a stablecoin, so I had to look at it, and I like the idea of stablecoins. Actually, I really like the idea of stablecoins. I don't like the idea of Mark Zuckerberg having a global-based stablecoin, so I'm really glad it tanked. Really glad.
Yeah. So a lot of people are linking that because apparently there's going to be executive orders. President Biden is going after Bitcoin, and some guy from Bloomberg is saying that the White House is going to be pulling off executive orders on crypto in February. So I know a lot of people were saying that D might be, maybe Facebook got pressure from the government, not doing or not, having their own coin there. Let's see what happens here. I think this is quite interesting now that a lot of people are bringing up this story that there'll be some sort of executive action.
Broad-based regulation of this currency is much needed and late to the party, as far as I'm concerned. The fact that Americans have not, as a government or as a country, have decided to step in and see what they can do to make sure that people are safe and that their deposits are safe. The same way that they do with banks, right? The way that they have federally insured deposits, they should have federally insured deposits in terms of Bitcoin transactions. That requires, however, for government intervention, which most of what Bitcoin is all about and the people that are involved in it didn't want. But honestly, it's the only thing ever that's probably going to carry it forward. Operating as an independent thing, it will always be a gray market / black market product. It's never going to achieve legitimacy.
think the reason why they're doing it now is because they couldn't do it before. The majority of the hash rate is now within the United States borders.
Oh, right.
Not good.
So, I mean, they really didn't have the jurisdiction to do anything about Bitcoin except for moderate the on-ramps and off-ramps. And now that they have 36% of the hash rate located within its actually jurisdictional borders, now it can actually start to consider what it's going to do about regulation. I mean, that is the problems of centralization in terms of Bitcoin, is you give too much power to one specific country, and suddenly the coin is now American. It's not Chinese anymore. Now it's American. It's split between America and Kazakhstan, and Kazakhstan's got like 16%. And when the guns start shooting again, Bitcoin will go down. Now, when Biden gets on his high horse and starts with the executive orders, he wants to know where all the miners are, then Bitcoin will go down. Now, what I think is going to happen specifically is we're going to start seeing problems with DeFi, because decentralized finance is not decentralized, and it's not anywhere private. It's completely transparent. So we're going to start seeing regulatory pressure towards that. And I think as a countermeasure, we're going to start seeing more privacy-oriented measures. Like we're going to start seeing more Monero-like ring signatures make an appearance in terms of privacy metrics, and for decentralized finance and for various other coins. But I don't know. It's probably a good time to buy into Bitcoin because a lot of folks are, because it's down, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But a lot of folks are. I mean, when the regulations start coming, a lot more of the big time traders, the big time banks are going to get a lot more comfortable with it.
Yep.
And they're probably
now they can get deposit
but it's going to be very much an institutional coin. It's not good. It's not good for retail investing. It's already not good for retail investing.
Yeah.
This is not
Bitcoin is maybe become silver and gold now, where it can be controlled by big banks and institutions. So.
Well, it's down over 30K. I'd start throwing money in for sure.
So just my final thought on the crypto side. I'm still looking at Bitcoin here as like a risk-on asset, and funnily enough, it's acting just like the stock market in terms of the daily price action there, where for a few days we've just been ranging around this zone here, and I just see a really good correlation here between stocks and Bitcoin, because I just think they both are risk-on assets. So if the markets do get a bounce here and do continue higher, then I think Bitcoin will also follow along. But if the markets do see a reversal at 4,500 and make a lower high, then I think we might be seeing that Bitcoin around 30K or even under.
There you go, my friends. It's been a very interesting day. I know that I've offended many and probably made a lot of people think that I'm some sort of asshole, and I am. But, hopefully you were able to glean something from this discussion, mostly probably from Vishal and Joseph. I of course, offer the I'm mad as hell and not going to take it anymore viewpoint. This is it for today's Vishal and Company. It's been a great time. I appreciate the people that have actually tuned in and listened and have offered feedback and input. It was very well worded and gave us meat to chew upon as we discussed our subject matter back and forth.
Thanks, Steve. TK.
Sorry, what's that?
Thanks, Steve. TK.
Yes, exactly. That's right. Thanks, TK. If you have any topics that you're interested in and would like to see something more coded to what you would like to hear, give us a suggestion by all means. You can email any one of us at EQUITY.GURU, VTOORA, and that's VTOORA, Tura at EQUITY.GURU. You can get a hold of Joseph Morton, that's J Morton at EQUITY.GURU. And you can swear your ass off at me if you like. It's Galen Engen. Spell that one. GENGEN at equity.guru. And of course, I'm probably going to get all sorts of mail propositioning me for, single sites or something. But all right, we will see you guys next week, where I probably resume my stance. It's throwing milkshakes at the kids passing by on the street. And Vishal will be ever the expert at piecing apart the market, and Joseph will give his very much experienced viewpoint on cryptocurrencies and such. And hopefully we'll be joined by TK, our fundamental king, and also Maddie, who is very good at sort of monitoring things and making sure I don't get right out of control. So
just before we sign off here, it's the last 10 minutes of the markets before they shut for the weekend.
Yes. And
really strong price action here, folks, to end off the last 10 minutes here on the S&P and the Dow Jones. So things are looking positive, I guess, to end the week.
do you think that's because of the Fed comments, or just people deciding to load up on the end of the week?
Probably the latter there, man. Just,
Buying the dip.
almost breaking out here, yeah. So it's quite an interesting close here. Really
There you
strong
go.
close. I mean, again, Monday we could easily reverse, but
Absolutely.
so far it's gonna get some people sleeping comfortably this weekend.
Hopefully so. All right,
Also, we
then.
can probably put all our emails in like a comment section down there. Like, I don't know. So you don't have to
Certain
try
if
to
you like.
end them.
Yeah, well, what, you really want to make sure they get to start to harass me? That's
Well, they
fine.
can find
That's
us on
okay. I
Twitter.
probably deserve it. Okay, we'll try and do that. You guys take care. We suddenly got another viewer. They probably want to send me some email. All right, you take care. We'll see you next week. God love you. All righty. Bye-bye.